houses, but in almost many houses. I was almost saying in almost all houses, but in many houses, you have mold. Mold is everywhere in many houses, in many buildings. There mold, and mold is a big problem in this world. This program was actually requested. It was actually requested that we do this program, or Dr. Dorcas do this program at this time. That is why it's been requested now as we are preparing to come in. I can see that she's already on there. We do not want to waste a lot of time on this. That's why we decided that when she comes in, we are going to go straight into the program and have her talk as much as possible, as much as she can do. Uh, so we are not going to have our usual song, our usual choir. We will be having a powerful song next Sabbath. But this Sabbath, we're going to go straight into sick building syndrome. The topic is called sick building syndrome. Sick building syndrome. Let's have a word of prayer. Lord God in heaven, precious Father, we thank you so much for being with us all days of our lives. We praise your holy name. Glory and honor be unto you. Thank you so much for giving us yet another Sabbath and another day where we meet and chat and talk and learn and fellowship, learning from you, that we may be collaborators with you. Thank you so much. And as your servant is going to share and teach us and share with us, educating us, Lord, may you give us wisdom and understanding. May your spirit bind us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Dr. Dorcas, are you ready? Dorcas, are you ready? Okay, I think she's coming in. Yes, I think there's a little hiccup, technical hiccup. She is getting in, but just a little. Hold on, just a little. She is coming in, and as she's still coming in, I think maybe we can do a little recap on what this is, sick building syndrome. Sick building syndrome, this is a case where you get into a building and you just feel sick. You get into a building and you just feel sick. Every time you get into that building, you feel sick. Oh, it's like a case where the building makes you sick. Or you say, oh, every time I go to the office, I just feel sick. Every time I get to that house, I sleep in the morning, I feel so sick. And in the day when you get out of that building, you're fine. That's the term or the terminology, sick building syndrome. So it's the likelihood, the likeness, or the symptoms of sickness. You feel sick when you're in a building. This is what you call the sick building syndrome. And it comes in from the fact that there's a lot of mold in the building, or mold in the house, or mold in the building. The building is getting old, either getting old or is infected by mold. Okay. Most people do not know the fact that you can be in a building and you just become sick and you suffer from other symptoms that may not look like it's mold, yet it's so moldy. This is what you call sick building syndrome. I think give us a minute. I think she's here already. She's here already, and we're just going to go straight into the talk. This is Dorcas Ayodo.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy Sabbath. Sorry for the delay, but I think we'll go right on. I'll just say a short prayer, and then we'll go through this because, and the fact that we're using the Word of God to just identify things that may be causes of illness, not to help us to alleviate those same illnesses. It's a wonderful thing. Helps us to trust God's word, to be able to know things even before they happen, or to help us just navigate as far as health is concerned. So let's say a word of prayer, and then we'll proceed. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this day and for opportunities to be able to learn from you. We ask that you guide us in all that we do, and you bless this session that we'll have, for it's in Christ's name I pray and believe. Amen. So anyway, sick building syndrome. So what is it? If it was in a class and we were being asked maybe, and you had a multiple choice question, you'll ask yourself maybe, what is it? Is the building that is sick, or the people who are sick because of the building? Or all the above, or none of the above. Of course, as we go through, we'll actually see that it's both, both A and B. And so, but because when a building is sick, then the inhabitants thereof also are sick. And God knows this. God knew this, and he actually put in stipulations to help us, because there are people who might be living right there as far as they know, but the buildings they are in, because they're exposed to certain things, make them sick. As Jim was saying earlier on, yeah, people sometimes you're in a particular place, and when you're in that house, you're sick, and then you're not. When you're out of the house, then you feel better. And that's because the building might be sick, and that may make the inhabitants to be sick. And it's an important thing to know, because many people who suffer from sick building syndrome, many of the times they are relegated to psychiatric care, because there is no set diagnostic criteria for sick building syndrome. But the fact that from the word of God, God took it very seriously if a household was actually sick, and gave stipulations or directions to help to ensure that people do not get sick from that. So anyway, we go to the book of Leviticus, and I think the whole presentation will be based on mainly on Leviticus, because there are a lot of guidelines to the Levites, who are the ones who not only help to guide in spiritual matters, but even in health issues. And in this particular case, when someone had issues, and the main thing that they used to look at was leprosy, they would go to the priest to actually assess them and to give them to prescribe the method of being able to help them to relieve whatever suffering that they had at that particular point in time. So Leviticus 14 verse 34 says, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I give you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy, yes, in a house of the land of your possession. So God is using a term we all know. Yes, and we can use this to actually understand what leprosy was. So he's saying that he'll put a plague of leprosy. Leprosy when it's infested a human being was already illness. And so he's giving a directions if the house was also possessed in leprosy, what to do in the event that that particular happens. And we continue in verse 37, and it says, and he shall look on the plague. This is the priest. So the priests were given, one thing to note is that whenever there was a challenge or a problem, as far as suffering was concerned in this particular area, health-wise, God did not just focus on the problem. There's always actually a way out. And that's the thrust of our presentation, actually, even today. So anyway, in verse 37, it says, and he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be on the walls of the house with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall. And I want you to just remember that aspect, lower than the wall, because we'll use it later on. To determine why a house may be molded, because of course, as we're looking at the question of mold, and everybody knows that mold has issues, but I'm looking at it from God's aspect to see how he brought a solution and why a house may be molded, such that sometimes you're trying to get rid of the mold and it's still coming back. So the aspect of lower than the wall. And I like the fact that he gives descriptive terms. He doesn't give you scientific names or a local common name in a particular area. He describes it for us so that when you see it in your house, you know what it is. And then 1444, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it's a fretting leprosy in the house. It is unclean. It is condemned, uninhabitable. With such a place. And when God says that, it's something that you should listen to, because we'll learn that leprosy of a house, let me use the term that the Bible uses, leprosy of the house, will have long-term consequences in the inhabitants there. It can actually kill, or give you markedly reduce the quality of the home. And that leprosy in the house can lead to leprosy in the people. And that's our focus of the next few verses, Leviticus 13:9-11. When the plague of leprosy is in a man. So that leprosy can be in the house. That same leprosy can be in a man. Now, one of the reasons we put these two connections also, the leprosy in the man and the leprosy in the house, it's because we all know what leprosy in man was. It was a disease that many people had to be put aside for a while to prevent from being spread. That is one. And it was a disease that God used natural remedies to actually cure. Because a lot of times, especially in the New Testament, people looked at leprosy as something that is almost a death knell. You're going to be ostracized. You're going to be out, expelled from the community. But Christ himself showed that that was not the purpose. It was possible to be healed, not actually healed, cleaned from leprosy. So we see that if it's in a man, the same terminology, leprosy in a man, when he talks about leprosy in the house, all of us, I'm sure in our minds think of, it must be mold. So just the connection that the same term that God uses to describe leprosy in human beings, which we know afflicted many people in the Bible, is the same terminology he uses to afflict leprosy in the house. That just goes to show the causative agent is the same. So that leprosy is actually mold, or is fungal, if I can put it there. It's fungal infection. So whenever you see plague of leprosy, as we're using the biblical term, think of fungi. Yes, because mold is fungus, that much we know. So the same terminology, leprosy in man was actually fungus. And we'll see that as we look at the description, how it is described. Then he shall be brought unto the priest, and behold, if the rising be white in the skin. Yes, most of leprosy was white. Think of Naaman, he had white spots. Think of Miriam, her skin turned white. Think of Moses when he's being sent to Egypt, his hand, when he put him in the bosom, actually when he put it out, when it was leprous, it was white as snow. Yes, so a lot of them actually are white. And there are many lesions in our day-to-day life, in our modern day, that are leprous. Yes, most of the time people equate the leprosy that we call leprosy now with the leprosy that is in the Bible. But the good thing is that leprosy, as described here, tells you exactly what it is. Manifested as a skin lesion. Yes, and mainly white. The primary presentation was actually white. Now the leprosy we call leprosy in our day now. I even think of sometimes when you're teaching children Sabbath school, you tell them the leprosy that eats people's hands. That's a different leprosy. That's a bacteria that is associated, or it's a brother or a sister to TB. Very different. That one actually attacks the nerves. And that's why the fingers break off, because they have no sensation. So you get hurt and you don't feel it. Yeah. But the one that is described here, as we'll see, is actually fungus. Yeah. White in the skin. Most skin lesions, most fungal infections are actually white. Yeah. Think of athlete's foot. Think of the white. You get white lesions between the toes. Think of ringworms. Yeah. Think of dandruff. Think of most of them. Yes, are white. Now you can have superimposed infections on top of that, or you can have other things. And again, the Bible goes ahead to describe. So it may be white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and there be raw flesh in the rising. So there's some bruising, yes? There's some inflammation, yes, around it. There's the body is trying to fight against it. It is an old leprosy in the skin of his flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. And you can go on and on, because it goes all the way to the whole of Leviticus 13. Give even more detailed description. You can find different colors, green, black, yeah. But the main one, as I said earlier, is the white one, and that's I could get characteristic of fungus. Yeah. And so when you think of leprosy, while reading the Bible, think of fungus. So anyway, go to the next slide. For in there, if there be any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, a few more descriptions of what that fungus or that leprosy. Yeah, and we'll talk about we'll use those terms interchangeably now that we've explained them. So the flesh also, in which even if the skin thereof was sorry, the previous one, hot burning. Because that's the next. It's okay. Let's go with this one. The flesh also, in which even if the skin thereof was a boil and is healed. So different ways that fungus presents, or leprosy. Let me use the Bible's term. But now we know. Remember, when I put in fungus, just know we're describing that leprosy. So when you put it in the human being and the way God prescribes it, now you can see the connection with leprosy and fungus, or you can put it better, a decomposer. So let's look at this particular description. It was a boil and is healed, and in the place of the boil there was a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish, and it be shew to the priest. And if when the priest seeth it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin. Notice that we'll come back to that again. As we said, for the house, lower than the wall, here lower than the skin. And the hair thereof be white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It's a plague of leprosy broken out of a boil. Now, again, if we go into in-depth about what a boil is, yeah, boil is dead white blood cells and whatever the body was trying to extract or to remove. Yeah, so it has decomposition inside. So you can get leprosy from there. Again, just trying to bring in together the evidence for leprosy being fungus in our modern day language. But as I said, God giving it to us in a descriptive manner. The next description. So again, it can be a scab. So it can be a hot burning, then it can be a scab also. So when you have people sometimes feel like they're having tingling sensations, yes, or just feeling something is inflamed, is hot, and the quick flesh that burneth has a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, and the priest shall look upon it, and behold, if the hair in the bright spot be turned white, and its side be deeper than the skin, it is a leprosy broken out of the burning. Wherefore the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It's a plague of leprosy. Just showing that there are many ways that leprosy can present, and a lot of presentations, you don't even need an invasive technique to identify it. It's something that was going to be shown out in the skin. Yeah, and I'll continue saying the most common way it presented was a white lesion, but it would come out as other things, as from a boil or from a place that feels like it's burning. Yeah, and it comes out of that. And if you've learned about fungal infestation, you actually be able to connect that these are actually some of the presentations that are common when someone has fungus infesting their systems. Then again, it can be a scab. And what is a scab? When you have a wound, and then you get a clot that plugs up the wound, and then the first skin that comes out usually harder than the normal one. It's dark. Many people like removing it, especially children, even adults. I guess it's irritating. So they try to remove it. That's a scab. And so the other presentation was actually of a scab. That's in Leviticus 13, verse 36. Then the priest shall look on him, and behold, if the scab be spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for yellow hair. He is unclean. So there are many. Leviticus 13, 42 to 44. Again, if you're bald in the head or bald forehead, not that the baldness is the problem, but it can be sometimes anyway, but there's a white reddish sore. It is a leprosy sprung up in his bald head. Yes, so different ways it presents. It's not one thing. So leprosy, as I said, a lot of times in children's Sabbath school, we give the description of the current disease that is named leprosy, which is actually a bacteria that attacks the nerves. But God gave us a vast description of what leprosy can present us. Yeah, and the fact that, as I said, when we started talking about leprosy in the house, the same term used to describe leprosy in a human is the same term used to describe leprosy in the house. And probably all of us, when you read that verse for leprosy in the house, what comes to our mind is mold. That's what gives us the connection of leprosy actually be a disease that comes because of decomposition, because of fungi. You can say fungal infection. So anyway, the thing is, our focus today is not leprosy in man. The presentation I've gone through before is just to show the link between leprosy and fungus. Our focus a lot is leprosy in infesting houses, which can lead to leprosy, of course, in the human being. And that's the biggest problem, because when someone is sick, yes, then their quality of life is reduced. And as I said earlier on, sick building syndrome is not ideally identified as a disease, so you can go in circles trying to find relief, yeah, and yet the problem was in the house. So God gives us actually the best way to deal with it. So anyway, so leprosy in the house and leprosy in the man were given the same name in the Bible. They are both described similarly as unclean, and that's the bit we should think about all through, yeah, because God did not even call it a disease, yeah. It was a sense of uncleanness. That gives us hope in terms of the way to take care of it is much simpler. I mean, basically, just be ye clean. And actually see that in the word of God, actually. Whenever he refers to leprosy, they weren't referred to as people who are ill or sick. They are referred to as people who are unclean. Yeah, not to ostracize them, but to show them that the way is just what we as a church talk about, using sanitation, hygiene, to take care of illness. And that's the way that was used to actually make people better from leprosy. And so with our connection of leprosy being fungus, getting rid of the fungus. Yes. If it's around us, getting rid of it. If it is in us, finding ways to clean it out so that the body can stop being decomposed, stop being broken down, and have more vitality. So just a number of some of the verses talking about how to deal with leprosy. For the house in Leviticus, and he shall cleanse the house, and it shall be clean. Of course, we will qualify that a little bit later on, because there are some situations whereby, especially if that leprosy came from lower than the wall, that house would have to be condemned. Yeah, and we'll see the reason why. And then Matthew 8:3. Again, for the leprosy in the man, immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Now we can say his fungus was cleansed. So we talked about mold. We've done this earlier already. So we'll just keep those slides, just connecting the fact that leprosy in the house, which is mold, is fungus. And so leprosy in man, the same name, is fungal infestation. So let us look at how to cleanse, because our major thing is, again, when God shows a problem, it's not for us just to know there's a problem, but there's always a solution out. And he's told us for leprosy, it's not a matter of healing, it's a matter of cleansing. So let's look at the things that encourage that uncleanliness, or rather the things that encourage mold to thrive. And there are three main things. Yeah? It's moisture, warmth, and lack of oxygen, or limited oxygen. Yes. So once you know that, actually you're on the way to helping to be able to get rid of mold in the house. Remember, our focus is on mold in the house, because once that is taken care of, then the problems that are emanating from that mold in the house to the residents who are there because of the spores, yeah, then we take care of it, and the person gets well just because of by removing the cause. So common sites are, of course, areas that have lots of moisture. So bathrooms, kitchen, like a lot of times under the sink, people rarely look underneath the sink. And a lot of times, because it's constantly wet, you'll find a whole lot of mold there. And then some outer walls, because they're exposed there, and especially if there's a lot of plant material, because the roots will hold water, the leaves will hold water, so it tends to be moist for longer. And then the ceiling, below water tanks or leaking points. So if you have a water tank above a ceiling, if it overflows or there is leakage, you'll get a lot of mold. And that's really a bad position, because for a bathroom, lots of the time, maybe if it's in a tub, it'll be on the bottom, towards the bottom side. But if it's on a ceiling above, that means the leakage will from above. So the spores really pour out, really shed and it's very easy to get infestation or infected by mold spores and get mold infection or fungal infection. So once we know that, then one of the things we can know without even anyone telling us that the house may have mold or flaking paint. A place that has a lot of moisture, you'll find there's a flaking paint, and you might find white powdery growth on the wall, and it might be a different color. Like the one we saw in the Bible in Leviticus, it can be a streakish of gray, of green, rather, of green, of red, yes, depending on the species that is there, but it can be a variety. But basically, a line, like maybe you have a pipe or a place that is leaking, and you actually see in that particular area that there are changes in the paint and in the coloration at that particular place, and you realize that there is mold, and that can cause a lot of problems. So you need to deal with it, especially now that we know that what enhances the growth of that mold is moisture, little air, yeah, so a place that has little air and warmth. So you'll work towards removing those particular circumstances or the environment that enhances the mold. That is key in helping to get rid of mold. So let's look at the symptoms as was written in the word of God again. Leviticus 14:37. He shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague on the walls of the house have with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall. Yeah. To explain this further, lower than the wall means that the problem is deeper than what you see. And we saw this again in leprosy in man, lower than the skin. The problem is not just local on the skin, such that you take care of it with an ointment on the skin and it goes. It means the problem is starting from inside. That's in man. So for this one, if it's lower than the wall, it means the problem is deeper than that. Huh? And anyway, and so when we're dealing with it, we have to deal with the problem deeper than just doing a surface presentation, just on the surface. So anyway, if you look at the definition of sick building syndrome, yeah, they usually define it as non-specific symptoms occurring in occupants of a building. We alluded to that earlier on. And as I said earlier, it's usually referred to as something that's idiopathic. We don't know the reason. Yes, you don't know the reason. When I used to be in medical school, they used to say idiopathic means the doctor is an idiot and so the patient is pathetic. I mean, that's really extreme. But anyway, basically, you don't know what the problem is, so there's no solution, so to speak. But as we said, once we understand that fungus is a decomposer, and of course, if there are spores in the place that you're sleeping in 8 hours, yeah, every single day, and sometimes you're in that house probably even more than that, then you are constantly exposed to decomposers. That has a lot of problems. Then the thing is that it is systematic. Systemic. That means it doesn't affect only the skin. It is deeper than that. So that when you get trying to take care of mold infections or leprosy of man, yes, you don't only take care of the external. The external was a way God used to actually indicate that there's a problem, but there are deeper spores inside. So you have to do some systemic treatment for you to take care of it well. Don't only just focus on the outside one. So some of the things about sick building syndrome, it presents in different ways in different people. Yes, depending on your area of weakness or the area of greatest exposure. It could be on the skin, it could be in your lungs, it could be even mental, yes, or neurological. So it has an array of presentation. The commonest and the ones actually we see when God is describing it are the ones on the skin. And as I say, go back to Leviticus chapter 13, you'll see an array, even things like rashes. There are so many ways that fungus can manifest or that leprosy can manifest. So you can have the chronic rashes, you can have dermatitis, skin infections. As a whole, basically, most skin infections or most problems that affect the skin have a fungal root or a fungal cause. Yeah, so eczema, scaling, dandruff, athlete's foot. Yes, all those are some of the symptoms of skin manifestations of fungal infection or leprosy of man. Now, respiratory system also very, very common because a lot of times the way you get it in our bodies is through breathing. Yeah, so next to skin manifestation, the next common one is actually respiratory. So chronic bronchitis, always getting upper respiratory tract infections. You can even get worse symptoms or worse causes like emphysema, yeah, chronic sinusitis, asthma, allergy. Asthma is an allergy anyway. So you're getting spores, fungi. Generally, we know that one of the commonest causes of allergy is actually fungus, and it makes you allergic to everything else. A lot of times when you go to places, people ask you how they get rid of allergy to dust, allergy to hay, allergy. the foundation of that allergy is actually usually fungus, because whatever comes in as a fungus, its law is to decompose. It will be decomposing it, so it's bringing out things that are taking you back to dust, so to speak. So respiratory symptoms, as I have mentioned them. Then you might have again neurological, as I said earlier, and those one can be those are the ones that sometimes relegate someone to psychiatric care, because the doctor can't see what the problem is. Yes. And they're doing diagnostic tests and there's nothing that is revealing, and they just say go and see a psychologist. So memory loss, fatigue, very, very common, because fungus as decomposers usually take energy from us. Tinnitus, that's ringing ear. That's also very, very common. Sometimes if you find someone having something ringing in the ear, at the same time they feel dizzy, even when lying down. Someone telling you I lie down and actually feel I'm sleeping, I'm prone, or I'm not standing. Yes, but I'm feeling like the world is moving in circles. That's usually because of fungus infection in the middle ear. Tics, stutters, neuropathy, all those are neurological. And these are not exhaustive lists. There are far many more symptoms. Again, GIT, bloating. And again, the Bible focuses on the skin manifestation. But if you know about fungus, you know that these are the same symptoms that someone has when they have fungal infection in different parts of the body. So bloating, lots of gas because of production of carbon dioxide. I mean, fermentation in the system because of a lot of fungus in the tummy. So whatever you eat that has carbohydrate, the fungi will work on it, and they will produce a lot of carbon dioxide, and they'll produce alcohol. So you get a lot of bloating. Then chronic diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, and gastritis. Actually, there's a long presentation also on just fungal infestation, and you'll see a lot of fungal infestation symptoms are in the GIT, in the gut. Yes, of course, for sick building syndrome, you see more of the respiratory and the skin. Yes, because the route of entry, yeah, the spores will be in contact with the skin, and the route of entry usually inhalation. Yes, so you see more of those. But the other fungal infections, sometimes like when you're ingesting fungi, you'll get more of the GIT problems and more systemic manifestations. And then we go to the reproductive system. Again, premenstrual syndrome, very common, yes, and infertility. Special senses. And this one particularly, we did some research on that at a university, actually an Adventist university, and we looked at the problem was there's some people who get sick while in school, and then when they're home, it's not there, or vice versa, depending on where the mold is. Yeah, and that was able to delineate that actually there's a cause in a particular location because of the rooms or the places of residence. The place they reside probably have mold. And then special senses. So, I mean, there are many symptoms, as I'm saying. I'm just going through some of them. Blood vision, dizzy spells. We talked about that earlier, about dizzy spells can also be because of infestation in the ear. And then, and there are many, many more. And I said the list can go on and on. Cardiovascular, palpitations, and even aneurysms. You can get fungal aneurysm. So anyway, as I said, we did a study on this, and we were doing specimens to see which type of fungi we could find on the buildings. Yes, in the building walls. When you go and scrape the flaking paint, or you go and scrape the hollow streaks, and see what we could find. Aspergillus was very, very common. And has been known to cause cancer, not cancer, pneumonia. Yes, Aspergillus pneumonia. And the bad thing is that most people not rarely, but it's usually you have to have a very high index of suspicion to think of fungus as causing pneumonia. And pneumonia caused by fungus is actually more deadly than that caused by bacteria. Most people, physicians, would think of bacteria. That's the common one. Yeah. Now again, I guess of course with COVID, people would think of maybe COVID or viruses, but most people don't think of fungus as a last resort. So by the time someone is detected that you have fungus, maybe you're far gone. So, but anyway, we found these actually were specimens that were actually common in the walls that we scraped to look for fungus to identify the sick, the mold in the buildings. Then penicillium, we know it well because it's the one that's used to make penicillin. And that's another thing. Sometimes when someone is given penicillin to get rid of bacteria, it sets up now a fungal infestation that worsens up. But anyway, that mold or the fungus that is used to derive penicillin was actually found as one of the specimens on the walls. And then Candida. That's something worth note because females are especially affected by candidiasis. One of the reasons is through ingestion of a lot of fungal or things that are yeasted or have fungi, but also it could be from the spores. And some of the things that you noted that, as I said, some people had worse menses when they're in school, when they're on campus, and less so, especially if they're coming from the rural area. When they go back home, it's not there, but whenever they come to school, sometimes they have to be hospitalized because of that. So we actually found that there are some Candida species on the walls of the spores that are sprout when we have mold on the walls. So anyway, our focus, as I said, is to prevent, to manage. So of course, our first line is always prevention. And this we are told in depth from the book Adventist Home where to site our homes. And it's very important. I know in my community, when you go to rural areas, most people, when they build, they actually build the house lower. Yes, they dig out, and the house is always a place whereby sometimes I wonder, because water will always be draining into the home. And that's a place whereby you will get mold coming out from lower than the wall, because the site is the problem. Yes, the place that is always wet or is swampy, if you build a house, as good as it might be, as stately as it will be, will have a problem with mold. I remember from our experience, the time we went as missionaries to a place in Tennessee, and the home we were given was actually at the base of a valley. Yes, and it was a very beautiful place. I liked it, but I was wondering why we were constantly sick. Yes, my son had a ringworm that never went and I'd put a garlic paste on it, and it would dry at the center, and the circle would just get wider and wider. And I was constantly, every week, I was constantly having some serious mouth sores, and I was wondering what is the source. But anyway, to cut this long story short, we went for a 1-week mission and came back. When we came back, everything that we had left, yes, in the house had a hair of mold. And that's how we actually realized that place was mold. What had happened is water was seeping from the bottom, and it was springtime. So that place was basically sitting on moisture. Yes, and then it's warm, starting to get warmer. Yes, and then it's anaerobic. So everything, all the clothes, all the books had just a hair of mold, the hairy mold. And so we had to leave there, and that solved our problem. So siting is very important. It should be on high ground, well drained, away from trees, because trees hold a lot of moisture. Trees may even spoil your foundation anyway, but they also hold a lot of moisture. And so, in as much that there should be trees in that place, they should be at least sited. There should be some distance away from the house. Otherwise, you may get into problem with a lot of mold, and again, get a lot of problems with the blocking. Some people say when they sleep, when I wake up, I'm blocked all the time. Yeah, some of the symptoms of mold in the house causing mold or leprosy in the human. Leprosy of the house causing leprosy in the human being. If I use modern terminology, fungus in the house or mold in the house causing fungal infection in the human. So design of buildings, well ventilated, well lit, having gutters, that helps a lot to reduce the moisture content, which is primary in the establishment of mold. As I said, a lot of times when you find mold, places that have lots of moisture. So if you don't have gutters and it's raining and the rain keeps pouring down your wall, you'll find a lot of mold building up. So it should be well ventilated. So large windows are very good. Again, traditionally our houses had very small windows, very, very small windows. So anyway, there are small houses, that's the good thing. And most of those houses are not permanent. So you'd always be moving. So I think that helped a lot. But anyway, if you're having a house that is permanent, then you have to have large windows to allow in lots of air, to allow in lots of light. Then peripheral structures like tanks, ensure that either they don't get overflow or you have a water tank by itself. That will help to reduce problems with leakage from the ceiling. And as I said earlier, from the ceiling, the spores are literally pouring down. So it's much easier to get chronic infections with mold. Now, the good thing is that all of those things you're looking at, say, that preventive, is because of the knowledge of how we can help to get rid of mold. Mold, fungus, like warmth, not heat. They like warmth. And then they like little oxygen. And then they like lots of water or moisture. So when we get rid of that, if a place has too much moisture, make sure it's not there. That's the curative aspect. If this place has little oxygen, flood it with oxygen. Yes, and that will take care of it. So some of the things that you do to help to cure are your ventilation, as we said earlier. Sun, allow sunlight to just flood in. Yeah, so that if there were spores, they can be able to be inhibited or to be made dormant, so they're not affecting us. And then oxidation, that is flood, again, that's the same thing, flooding with oxygen. UV flooding with light, oxidation flooding with oxygen. That's where bleach comes in. If you have a place that is really like under the sinks, or peroxide or ozone, yeah, flooding the place with oxygen, because those germs, most pathogens don't like excess oxygen anyway. And then the antifungals, this especially helps for the leprosy in man. Yes, you're infected. So what can you do? There are many things that can be done that are antifungal. Yeah, garlic, your onion, your aloe, your green juices, those deter. Those deter fungi, and so that those can help a lot for someone who has fungal infections for one reason or another. They can be taken for the person to help to cure. Yeah. So the good thing is, as I said earlier, that there's a way out. So let's look at the Bible and how they handled it. One, the priest was the one. That's why I want, like medical missionary work, doesn't separate health work with the gospel. The priest was the one who was to give oracles about as far as moral living. He was the same one to determine good health and to help someone when they were sick. So the priest, this is for the house. The priest shall command that they empty the house. Again, from knowledge you have on science, because there are spores everywhere. So as they want to do work in that house, get rid of those things, get them outside, because they may not be the cause of the fungus or the mold, but they may be infested by that. And then they'll shut up the house for 7 days. Yes. So let it stay, because sometimes there might be mold, but it's not because it is because of the siting. It might be something, maybe a small leakage somewhere, or something came into, not something that is permanent. Yeah. So you're given 7 days, and that's the same thing actually even for the leprosy in man, given 7 days to help to see, yeah, to let God's natural remedies work, because the house is empty. Probably open the windows, let it be flooded by light, yeah, so that if there's anything that could be causing a problem, it can be gotten rid of, yeah. And then the next thing, if this didn't work, they take away the stones in which the plague is, and cast them into an unclean place without the city. Yes. So if after 7 days there's still a problem, yeah, the areas, as I said, it could be something that is local. Yeah, that's why the one that has a great problem is the one that is coming from lower from the wall. If the sighting is a problem, whatever you will do, you'll always have problems. But it was just something, maybe one spore or somewhere landed there for a while, and you take care of it, you flood it with light, that will get rid of it. Or if there are a few stones that had a problem, if it's a house built of stone, get rid of those particular ones. Again, this is important, because there's a time I was giving this presentation and someone says, now you've made a heavy investment on a house. What do you do? Of course, if health is a problem, then you have to move. But God wasn't out to destroy your house, yes, to make you homeless. No. His mindset was to ensure that you are healthy, because the health effects of having that exposure constantly can be higher than getting a new house. Yeah. So anyway, so there's you don't have to vacate, because not all of them have a serious problem. Some might be just a local problem. So get rid of that. So after that you can scrape the house within and roundabout. So in case it's just part of the system that is a problem, yeah, trying to find ways to save that house. And then they shall pour out the dust that they scraped off without the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones, put them, again, reparative process, trying to restore. Take some mortar, plaster the house, yes. And if that doesn't work, then is when we come to removing that whole house. If it doesn't work at all, that means they used to have those 7 day periods. They have 7 days. You're given time for it to repair, the house to repair. If it was something small, the air, the ventilation will take care of it. You bring new stones, those new stones are clean, then the house will be fine. But if it comes again, it's actually called fretting leprosy. If it comes again, then he shall break down the house. Yeah, the stones of it and the timbers thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. If it can't be repaired because of probably the sighting, that mold is a mold that is not going away, because where it is conducive for the mold, that he'd rather have you safe than have a house. Yeah, so you'd have to move house. And this is a principle used in many countries. I remember the time we were in Finland, and there are places that were rezoned. There's a hospital that was moved. There's a school that was moved. That's a heavy investment. There was a church, yeah, that was changed into a car lot, just because of the mold problem. Because they understand the issue about mold in a building and the effect it'll have on the inhabitants. It is cheaper Yeah, to have that house down than to have those inhabitants there in as factors in relation to the health. What I'm just trying to reinforce is this aspect, the aspect of mold or fungus, yes, in a building that will affect the inhabitants thereof with fungal infection is something God took very seriously. And we'll have broader discussions about this. Yeah, whenever there was a leprosy that refused to be dealt with normal situations, the house was taken care of, was broken down. If it was on clothes like mildew, those clothes were burnt. That's the seriousness God puts towards leprosy in a house, which, as we saw earlier, is actually fungal infection, because fungi are decomposers. So the effect they have on your health are far-reaching. Yes, and as I said, we can talk for even a month just about the effect of mold or fungi on the system. They are decomposers, and when we come in contact with them, their work is to return us to dust, and that's not God's intention. God's intention is for the time He has given us on this earth to be able to do quality. But whenever we have a fungi, whether we're ingesting it or whether we are having it in our airspace, it has repercussions. And that's why God dealt with it in the manner we see in Leviticus 14:45. If that leprosy continues to stay on, then that house has to be brought down. Yeah. And those things have to go elsewhere, because he looks at our health as his utmost priority. Yes. And so he gives us reasons and ways to help out. So anyway, in a nutshell, sick building syndrome is something that occurs, yeah, even despite the fact that a lot of times in medical science or environmental or occupational health, they usually say it's idiopathic. But it's something that, as I said, like in Finland, they would have to put down buildings just because of the effect of mold. And it's very, very common, especially in the Western countries, because they have long periods of cold, of winter, and a lot of them have wall-to-wall carpet, places whereby mold can easily thrive. But for us to know this is to learn how to be able to take care of it, because as I say, the repercussions of fungi anywhere, yes, are detrimental. Yes, and as far as health is concerned, but I'm glad that God had a way out. Now, the other thing I just wanted to mention is in the mold or the fungus in the man, because that's the reason the house is being broken down. It's not just for the sake; it's because of its effect of the people who may be living there. The same things that the same inspection process or prescriptions for the house were given for man. When someone was sick from leprosy, they were taken out into the wilderness for 7 days. Yeah, sometimes they'll repeat another 7, depending on how heavy infested the person was. But anyway, for 7 days. And God's way was not to ostracize someone as it came to be done. Yes, later on, it looked like when someone was leprous, keep them out. They are sinners. That's it. Let them die there. But actually, God's way of sending them out the wilderness was actually reparative, was restorative. Because once we're outside there, yeah, you are getting exposed to the sun. You're getting exposed to fresh air. You're getting exposed to new start. Yes, because you'll be drinking fresh water. You'll be eating plants probably. You'll be sleeping out very early because you're out in the wilderness anyway. So giving you an exposure to new start to help that particular problem get solved. And that's why you see, like in Numbers, when Miriam got leprosy and her brother pleaded to God to just take care of it. And he could have said it and would have been gone. But he said, no, she needs to be out for that 1 week. As an example to us that the prescriptive process was not punitive, it was actually restorative. And the same things if we apply the new start, the nutrition, flooding our systems with plants, yeah, to get rid of the fungi, exercise outside. When you're out for those 7 days, whether it's water, you're drinking fresh, or hydrotherapy, for us, you can add that also. Getting sunshine, the strongest agent against fungi. You're getting fresh air, one of the strongest agents against fungi, and rest and trust in God. And those are reparative. So that can be helpful for us also to help along, because mold is a big issue and people should know about it. Thank you. I'll hand it back to Elder Jim, who will finish with us for us the word of prayer. And there are a few questions. I think we have time, but the moderator will help us to know whether we can answer or not.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. And I think we've gotten something. Thank you so much for this program and for this topic. This is a topic that is so needed, very much needed in the world. There's no part of the world that says we do not need this topic. All of us. That's why the Bible is loaded with how to take care of mold, how to take care of yeast, how to take care of leaven, how to take care of fungus. Now, we have come almost close to this hour, but there's a lot of response that we have on this and so many questions that are coming up. And so we are going to give one more time that we present on that, but I'm going to allow or have uh, Dorcas continue with this program if there are questions. If there are questions, whoever has a question can put it out that we may talk about it. There are several questions there that maybe she might pick and ask because we have a little more time today.
I see one question. It's asking about how do you know if your house has mold? Now, I can see a hand also up, and I can see Sister Sophia also has a question. So let me talk about how you can tell. Now, there are many things. First of all, some of the, again, you look at the Bible, it has descriptive ways. There are things, as I said, like the flaky paint or powdery outgrowths from the wall, or the ones the Bible talks about, yellow streaks or greenish streaks, especially a place that has moisture, like where the pipe is. So that can help. Number one. And two, if you experience, you can actually, there's a musty smell that you can actually feel when you get into a house that has mold. And then there are diagnostic kits also that can help to do that. There are people who actually come to take care of mold if you have them in your homes. And for those who have ever had mold or experience with that, it's expensive, because they know the effect of mold in a house. In fact, if you have house insurance, the premium usually rises if it has mold, because it's very difficult to get rid of. And especially if it's in the wrong site, or there's a place whereby it can't be helped because of the conducive things for mold are there. So there you can get people to come and assess, analyze the air quality, and see if they have any mold. Or you can look at do your own inspection. As I said, the places that you'll find the most is in the bathroom, where the water pipes are passing, or under the sink. Very, very common, because people rarely clean under the sink, and it usually has a lot of moisture. So those are areas that you can know, and the musty smell. Then Sister Sophia had said she had a question. Then there's a hand up by Sabine Flanders. You can ask after Sister Sophia.
Okay, I can ask now?
Sister Sophia, and then you, because I think she had asked before. Go ahead, Sister Sophia. Okay, you can ask Sister Sabine, then I'll look at the one for nails, and I'll look at Kalanga. Someone asked in my language. So, and once you're ready, Sister Sophia, just shout out. But Sister Sabine,
sorry, I was trying to unmute. I had a difficult. Yeah, thanks. I know this topic is very close to the Ayodo family. Since when we were in Kenya, we were told about it, and we can see the seriousness of it. But then, fortunately, my house was built in a site where there is water. But then we had an engineer, because when you build a double story, you cannot do it without the engineer. So we're told about every little thing that needs to be done, how to pump out water and whatever. So we don't have mold as such. But let's say we didn't know what we know. But the flaking sometimes is there outside the building, but we don't have mold in the house. So let's say you build a house, you are a Christian, a Seventh Adventist, and the out of the city question comes, and you have to sell that house to somebody else because not because it has mold, but because you have to go and you know the truth about the building. What do you do? Do you demolish that building so that you build another one? What do you do? And we know that it won't be for a long time that this earth is in existence. I'm talking about a moral issue. What do you do? because even if they buy that house, it won't be for a long time. Jesus is coming. And then I think you understand what it's a moral
Yes,
issue.
I hear you. I
And
hear you.
those people didn't know what. Yes.
Moses. Now,
Over to you, madam.
yes, the same point I said earlier on, because that's a question I always face. People look at the last one and they say destroy the house. Okay, not I said, I read it, but as I see, there are many processes. It might be something that is not chronic. And even when God was giving directions to get rid of the mold, because his aim was to get rid of the mold, not to get rid of the house. We understand that aspect first. So there are many things. It could be something local. Maybe it could be the pipe, that place with the pipe is the one that is leaking. Or as you're saying, it's an outdoor. Yeah, so if it's outdoor, it's because outdoors is exposed to extreme. So when you may get flaking outside, and when the sun hits, and of course, if you have proper structure, you'll have a thick enough wall. Like they have specifications for how thick the wall should be so that the moisture content, in case it affects outside, doesn't get inside. So it could be something local, and maybe you're thinking of you always think of demolishing. So if it's something local, that can be repaired, or you can look at ways to get rid of the mold. Before I talked about demolishing, or rather before I read about the demolishing, there are many things before there. Yeah, the specific place can be removed, repaired. You can plaster, you see, because if it's something that is just local or passing by, then it won't affect the whole house. Yes, that's the thing. So think of reparative, then let them know. Let them know that this house had this particular issue, yeah, so that they make informed choice for that moment. Yeah, but there are ways to help get rid of those things. Even houses that have people coming to try, they usually get people to try and come and clean it. It's usually very expensive, but they usually people try and come and clean. They use certain agents to try based on the things we talked about. Usually excessive oxidation, or using certain chemicals, or using peroxide or bleach to retard that mold. So you can try those processes first, but let them be in the know. I guess that's the main thing. Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes,
I'm
Sister
so
Sabi.
happy that you talked about the Adventist home. Reading is very, very important.
Yes,
Adventist home tells us, I'm very, very happy that the windows should be big, it should accept a lot of sunshine. Thank you, my Jay. Thank you so much.
yes. And now that you've mentioned that, you can do that also to a house that had small windows. Maybe you can increase the size of the windows. That might remove the need to actually demolish it, depending on what was causing it. But if it was in a swamp, the drainage would need to be sorted out. If it was in a place that is wet, and she talks about that, or is constantly getting, is poorly drained, then you'll have a constant problem. So maybe the drainage is what may need to be repaired or be checked on. So those are the other aspects. Yeah. So thank you, Sister Sifiwe. Sister Sabin?
Yes, good morning. My question is, as you were talking, you were explaining about how to treat it. Now I'm thinking about persons, not just right now I'm referring to the body and not the building. You talked about using antifungal agents and so. Can you mention some of them? I know you mentioned garlic, onion, but in addition to that, like let's say, what other herbs or would you recommend? And then as far as foods, when I look at there's a book, the Natural Remedies Encyclopedia, it talks about doing a pulse test to try to figure out what types of food you might be allergic to. And I keep seeing bananas, tomatoes, peanuts, they keep coming up as allergens. Now, can you address that a bit too, as to if those foods are more prone to having fungus, and if so, why?
Generally, it depends on how they are dried. Because I know, like when I was in the US, a lot of times they talk about peanuts and cancer of the liver. But for any grain, and some people even just say get rid of all grains. It's because for any grain, if it's not well processed, say it molds. Yes, and you get aflatoxin. So it's not the peanut per se, but it's the toxin that comes from the fungus that grows on it. Yeah, because fungi also like glucose. Yeah, they like carbohydrate. Yeah, and we need carbohydrates also to be able to get our energy. But fungus also like that. We don't have a digestive system. Something that is already sweet, they draw their energy from that, their food from that. So anything that is poorly processed will give you that. Yeah. And for the aspects about fruits, like bananas, they even pineapple, they ripen very, very quickly. They ferment very quickly. So it's that aspect. The aspect that the food in itself is not the problem, is that if it has molded or it has rotten or it has gotten spoiled, it's like me going to the market or going to a tree and looking for a rotten mango. Yes, the mango itself, when it's in the right state, is very fine. But when it started getting molded or started getting fermented, then it brings the problem. So those are foods that, if not well dried, in any place, wherever it may be, whether it's in my country or in the Caribbean or in the US or in the Europe, if it's not well dried, it's prone to get molded and getting aflatoxin. There's a time in my country they threw away a lot of maize. Maize is a staple here, and they threw away a lot of maize because it had aflatoxin. Aflatoxin can cause acute death. Yes, it can overwhelm your liver in a few hours, in 72 hours. Yeah, it's that strong. It's a fungus. So it's the fungus that grows on these things that makes them a problem. So that's the main thing. The other thing you asked about was about what to cleanse. Now, garlic onion is one of the strongest. I know I can actually say the strongest. Yeah, it's even when compared with antifungals that are commercial or conventional, it has a better record in terms of taking care of fungi. Aloe is another one, and basically any green leafy. In fact, we usually explain it using the food chain. If you look at the food chain, the only thing that can overcome decomposers is producer. So that's why in the short list that I wrote, one of just whatever green leafy thing that you have. So I just wrote in a nutshell green juices. So you can do protocol juice. Yeah, those green leaves will overcome fungus very effectively. But I know garlic onion is wonderful. And there are many things. Some of them I know them in my local tongue. They're probably local in my place. And you may not find them elsewhere, but there are many things. If they're green, they will help to take care of fungi. Is that okay? Have I clarified, or is there something I left out from your questions? Then I see your hand, Sister Charmaine, but there are a few other questions before. There was someone who asked about psoriasis, and there's someone who asked about fungal infection of nails. Let me talk about those two. And someone asked about something in my mother tongue. Then I come to you, Charmaine. Now, fungal infection, toes take a long time. Fingernails and toenails take a while to grow. So what happens? Even if you're treating them conventionally, the one that has been infected will just have to grow out. Yes, yeah. If it has been especially severely infected, so you can do poultices of the antifungals I've said, take internally, because if you're seeing toenails that are darkened or that are distorted because of fungus, yeah, it's coming from lower than the skin, as the Bible puts it. Yeah, so you clean inside and you can do poultices on the specific ones. If it was just discoloration, you might find that it can disappear in a short while. But if it was more heavily infested, that dead nail that is already infected will grow out. Then the newer nail, yes, will actually be the cleaner one. So it needs patience, because it takes about 3 months for a whole nail to come out. Yeah, so that one needs patience. Yeah, even conventional, they'll tell you that let the old nail grow out, the new one now. So you focus on putting your poultice not only on the nail that is distorted, but especially on the nail bed, so that the new one coming from the root will actually be fungal free. Psoriasis. Psoriasis is a skin ailment, and there are many skin conditions. Yes, and is markedly helped by even doing a garlic onion wash or a garlic onion poultice. Of course, for any garlic onion poultice, don't go for longer than 10 minutes. But I've seen many. In fact, there's a lady who were doing something called breakfast club at one time, just to help people make the change to a new lifestyle. And I didn't even know that she had serious psoriasis. And she said that she had it for years. And when we talked about garlic and onion, she decided to do a wash, yeah, for her hair, because I think has affected her scalp most. And she was amazed at what relief she got just with the garlic and onion wash. So, and those antifungals are very important, but in the light of stopping the source of fungus. And the same with ichthyosis. Ichthyosis just means skin that looks like fish scales. Yeah, as I said earlier, most skin conditions have a fungal infestation. And that's why God, when he was describing these things, a lot of times, not a lot of times, he actually based a lot of the descriptions from the skin manifestations. So for fungal, for skin manifestations or symptoms on the skin, whether it's from a boil or to much serious issues that are autoimmune, the fungus, Yeah, and another day, another time, we'll talk about fungus infestation, and I'll just show you the link between many of even the autoimmune illnesses and the endocrinal illnesses with fungus. So kalanga, someone talking about kalanga. Kalanga is something like looks like ringworm. It's a skin changes that occur. In my language, it's called kalanga, and kalanga can be because of worms. They also cause changes in skin, or it could be because of fungus also. So do the same thing we have mentioned. You'll have to actually get sorted out. In English or in scientific language, you could call, sometimes it's called vitiligo or vitiligo. You find someone who's not an albino or who's not Caucasian, but you have spots, yeah, that are lighter, yeah, hyperpigmentation, yeah. So those ones, that's what we call kalanga. Sometimes it can be due to fungus or due to worm. So you either deworm or you can do the same. Some of the poultices that are very good for kalanga, for that type of pigmentation, are clover. The clover leaf, you can actually pound it and put it there, or whatever green you have around, and that also will help to take rid of that. Sister Charmaine, you're next, and then I'll answer the other questions that have come in after your hand.
Yeah, I want.
Go ahead.
The host is not allowing me to unmute.
We can hear you, actually.
Okay, good. Yes, good morning. I wanted to thank you for that presentation again. It is so critical, and my eyes are being opened more and more as I observe my community. Recently, I went down to visit a village, a person in a village where there's a lot of water. You talked about water, having water settling around the home and the dangers of that. Well, we have a community here in which the houses are in a waterlogged area. And I went to visit my god sister down there, and I had my dog down there for about 6 months, and my dog came back very sickly and loaded with parasites and couldn't gain weight for a very long time. And I recently went to visit her, and she has a flock of goats, and the goats are just getting sick. They're pretty goats, but they're getting sick and they're dying, and the vets cannot tell what's happening. And the Lord told me, parasites. In fact, he just lost one last week. And she has to give them ivermectin in order to help them to get well. And I just wanted to quickly say that the dangers of living and putting our homes in places that where water settles and all of these things. So God has given us good instruction to make sure our house is in locations where there's proper drainage, because the vets cannot tell what is going wrong with these goats. And you can just see all the water, pools of water everywhere. So I just praise God for that, and thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you, Sister Charmaine. Yeah, it's that drainage issue is very, very important. Yeah, and as I said, when Sister Sophie was actually speaking, yeah, the problem may be something that can be resolved if we had proper directions into how to site or how to maybe even just enhance the drainage, the landscape, whatever it is. Yeah, so as I said, the mindset is there's a problem, and the problem is what is causing the house to be demolished. But if that problem can be sorted by sorting the issues that cause mold, understanding that concept is what our focus is on. There are a few other questions. Thank you, Sister Charmaine. Now there are many questions about how to do specific things. There's one asking about the mouth sores in the mouth. Those are fungi. Now, mold is a fungus, yeah? Mold is actually a fungus. The fungus is a kingdom by itself. It's a whole kingdom. In the past, scientists used to think they are plants, but they're not. They are a whole kingdom, and their work is decomposition. So when you have white lesions in the mouth, a lot of times if you have them in the mouth, you might have them running even down the throat. Maybe you're taking something and you feel it's burning all the way down your esophagus. Sometimes it may be running all the way through your gut. Yeah, so the mouth is just a manifestation. Yes, those are fungi. Yes, and they like the same environment. So the mold can infest as mold. They're brothers. Let me say, no, they're one family. Let me put it that way, but they're just different species. So mold are actually a type of fungi. And so the mouth sores, you can help them even with gargles using garlic onion, or using green juices, or you can do a poultice. Actually, you can do poultices for charcoal. Someone asked about activated charcoal. Now, if it's something minor, activated charcoal can help. Yeah, but if it's something more serious, you may need something to. If it's something that's just on the surface, like when in the Bible talking about something that is local, that may be removed, may be drawn out by the charcoal. But if it's something that has rooted, when you learn about fungi, they have a rooting form. If it has rooted, it has formed roots, you will need more aggression to get rid of it. So if the charcoal doesn't work, like for mouth sores, then you can go and do the garlic onion first, or you do some of the stronger mixtures of the antifungals to get rid of them. And of course, remember, remove the fungus also from the diet. And if there's mold around, also get rid of it. I don't know if there's someone whose question. I know there's someone who asked me a personal question. I'll see how we can answer that. Okay. Now someone has asked about mushrooms, foods that are prone to fungus. Any food that has carbohydrate, as I said earlier on, fungus will like, because they're also looking for food. Yeah, so it's just to ensure that you make sure that what they like to enable them to thrive, you eliminate to actually help that to reduce the burden of mold. I'm trying to read the question so that I can answer. If there's a question that I haven't answered, Juliet, I see your hand, Sister Baker. Let me just see if there are a few questions I can answer first. Someone is asking about the amount of ingredients plus the procedure of making the poultices. Now, as Brother Absalom, now the number of poultices you can make. Garlic onion is one. Garlic onion usually a ratio of about a ball of onion and 2 cloves of garlic. Yeah. Now, depending on the size of the area you want to cover, yeah, it may need more, you may need less, but that's the basic ratio. So, but the main thing, and I want to underscore, is even if it's from mold that is aerosol, I mean in your airspace, the mold that you eat or the fungus you eat, focus on that a lot. And that will help to take care of the situation. I gave you the situation that I had when we were in a house that had mold, and I was constantly getting sick, and our son also constantly getting sick. Just coming out of that home was enough to stop the repeated cycle of getting mold infection. So that's the most important thing, get rid of the cause. And then for Absalom, just ensure you tune in to more, yeah, because we talk more about remedies. Today I was just focusing on the sick building syndrome, but you can talk about more remedies that will help, because fungal infections are numerous. Believe you me, they are numerous. And even in the aspect of cancer, a fungal infection is key. Yes, there's a lot of things with fungal infection. So Sister Baker.
Right. Thank you.
And I think this will be the last question, because I think our time is
okay. Morning, everyone, and happy Sabbath. I'm wondering, I've had a sore throat. When I said sore, it looks reddish. I don't have, the typical sore throat symptoms, but it just looked a little sore. I've had it for more than a month, and I've been trying the garlic and onion goggle. I've been trying hot and cold fomentation. I've been trying inhalation. When I does that, however, the inhalation, I bring up a lot of mucus. That's for sure. I've tried salt and lime goggle and that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering what happened after a while, though. I don't know if I do it like morning, evening, and night. So I don't know if I'm doing it, because after a while the throat will really feel sore, and I see like some these tonsils by the side of the throat seem swollen. So I went to the doctor after a while, and there I was told that it could be sinus rhinitis. So I'm wondering if it is the fungus or mold issue that I'm having.
Okay. I think I shared my experience with a house of. It could be that. Yes, if there could be an extraneous source of spores somewhere. So you can just assess and see whether it's your workplace or where you stay. That is one. Two, it could be a cyst, because as your doctor saying, you think it's something something's coming from your sinuses, because the ear, nose, and throat are all connected. And if it's something that was encysted, if you have a fungus that has encysted, it has formed a fortified wall. It needs a lot of pounding to get rid of it. You might find that, like some people, maybe you start changing your diet and you're doing very well, then there's something that seems to
Yeah.
be persisting. Yes, and then something that comes out that seems to persist for longer because it needs more reinforcement. I always tell people that sometimes when you had something that your body had imprisoned, because it's saying, okay, let's just put it aside, for a while, and then your body started getting the right tools to be able to fight. It'll fight the small things first, the common ones, and then get enough ammunition now to start battling that hard one. So if it has formed a cyst, it takes time. Yeah. So that's the second one. I say the first one could be something maybe in the air. If your house has mold or there's a place that has mold, check those areas like the bathroom, the kitchen, those are areas. As I said, for me, there's a time, it was a month or two, also probably a month, constantly every weekend. And I was wondering, yes, why am I constantly getting, for me it was mouth sores. Mouth sores so bad you can't even speak. And as I said, our son had a ringworm that I would treat with garlic oil, and it dries at the center, and then the rings just expand and expand and expand. And the problem, and it was just God sent anyway, that God sent us away. So when we came back, because when you were there, you were cleaning every day. So if there's any spore, probably you've cleaned it out. So when we went out and came back and just saw the layer of mold, the gray like fluffy growth,
Mhm.
that is what we are facing all through. So that can be that, or it could be a cyst. And if it's a cyst, it just needs more persistence, and you can hit it hard, hit it until it decides to it comes
So
out
like
completely.
three times a day, or how, or is that too much?
um okay, so the thing is, you can do, like when you do protocol, do that 21 days, give it a break, then start again, like that, give it a break. Yes, but persistently at it. So anyway, there's a mention about, I think people are asking about, sorry, Sister Claudette, is that okay?
Sure. Well, thank you. Yes, thank
Yes, okay. Now there's someone asking about tomorrow. I think not for tomorrow. I'm thinking about forming another session just to learn more about the mold. Tomorrow will still be short, so in small tidbits, just continue to advancing our knowledge about this. We'll see maybe when we can slot some more just to learn more, because what I realize, when you learn about it, it makes it much easier to understand cause and effect, and to understand the role you play in terms of helping ourselves as far as fungus is concerned. Yes, and I think I have had all, I'm done with all the questions. Is there anybody I haven't answered? Now, as I go through, I just see the question about ichthyosis. Ichthyosis is a skin infection also that is mainly fungal. When you go to hospital, they talk about autoimmune. Yes, and autoimmune illnesses, you need to take care of fungus, number one. So you can do the protocol internally, and then you can do poultices externally. You can do garlic onion. Maybe the person can inbox my husband later on WhatsApp, and then we can talk some more here. But you can do a lot of poultices even externally, and the scales will actually, the flaking will markedly reduce and actually be eliminated. So, but if you have more questions, you can, is ulcer a type of fungus? Now, ulcer just means a wound. Yes. Now, if you're talking about gastric ulcers or duodenal ulcers, most of them, the causative agent is fungus. Usually in hospital, is H. pylori, which is a bacteria. And that was actually a big discovery anyway, because before they just thought, used to think of it being just an acid, but excessive acid, but they actually realized that there's actually an organism. In fact, remember our professor used to tell us, we now know that gastric ulcers or duodenal ulcers are actually an infective process. Yeah. Now, key to that is actually fungus, and you'll actually realize that when someone has gastritis or the continuum into ulcers, they have a lot of associated problems that have to do with the fungal infection, the bloating, the constipation, lots of gas, lots of heartburn, all those related to actually excessive fungal infection also. So yes, take care of the fungus, it actually helps. So now the WhatsApp number, I'll give you my husband's number because my WhatsApp is currently not working. I'm not online, but I can write my husband's number on here and you can get him through me. You can get me through him, sorry. So let me write that. So I think I'm done. I'll hand it back to Sister Natasha as I write the number. And it's an eye opener. Just learn more. You'll be astounded at how much God tells us so much about fungus. It's a decomposer. And that's why many times, for those who have been through other previous sessions, we always talk about the food chain, because once you understand the food chain, you just see the whole outlay or an outline of how food or the different characters in the food chain work towards either enhancing health or actually causing illness. So thank you for that. Thank you. Sister Natasha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dorcas, for this very, very informative presentation. We will close out with a word of prayer, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Same time, same place. Kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word, which has given us so much direction on how to take care of this body temple, the indwelling place for you with us. May we each apply this to our lives and share with others. Be with us throughout this Sabbath day and this upcoming week. This is our most precious in prayer in your most precious name. Amen. Goodbye, everyone.
I never heard her say what time tomorrow she's talking more about mold.
She's not talking tomorrow. We're going to schedule another session, and she will continue with this. At the same time, we'll just schedule it for later in the upcoming weeks.
Yes, we'll let you know.